Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspired Action Life podcast. I'm your host Karen Baldridge, and I am stepping back behind the mic again because, as usual, I took a big long hiatus, and I know that does absolutely nothing for me in terms of podcast listening and all of the things, because people have plenty of good things to listen to. But I thought that I would go back to my roots as to why I even started the podcast in the first place. And so there's been a lot of things that have come up this year that have been things that I needed to look at, like things that I needed to examine a little deeper and not just take them at face value, because they just kind of kept showing up and showing up and showing up, maybe wearing a slightly different costume, but the same issue still came up. So I heard last year around this time that the year 2025 was going to be a great big year of shedding. Everyone consistently kept saying that, online anyway, and for various reasons why this would be a year of shedding. So anyway, I kind of entertained that and sort of let life unfold for me, so that I could observe what was going on, learn from it, and then eventually spit it back out in some platform, whether it's my social media or whether it's my podcast. It used to be my blog. So like when I initially started off on this, when I was first doing my whole new life career pivot, my version of a midlife pivot, back in probably, 7 years ago now? Yeah, probably 7 years ago or so. But I didn't know anything about this whole world, so I just kind of used it as a tool for me. I put a blog out there for me, to just sort of document my whole life pivot and some of the new ahas that I was beginning to sit with and go, some of these things don't add up. You know what I'm saying? So like in midlife, a lot of stuff has a weird way of floating to the surface and really making you examine it. And so I thought that what I wanted to do was do a recap of 2025, but also go back to my roots of what started this, and most importantly, to share with you some of the valuable insights and lessons that I learned from this year of taking space and being quiet. And it's not that I was quiet, but I was quiet on a lot of my social channels, but I wasn't quiet at all. I discovered audio journaling, where I could just, send myself voice notes, or I would speak out loud and my voice transcriber would transcribe it immediately. And that way I could document everything, talk text style, document everything that I was seeing and observing, and why was I feeling so triggered, and just sort of so I could look at it in totality, look back at it, and then what happened when I looked back at it, not because this was my intention, but because this was probably God's way of making me process this, is I began to see themes. Themes were coming up in my life and in my character, or my personal DNA, how I operate as a person, how I relate as a person. And again, that can seem really boring and oh, who cares with this self-help, kind of stuff. It gets a little overblown. It's all over social media, right? So it can be a little much and a little tedious, because in order to change, we need to look forward, not look back. If you're in the school of Joe Dispenza, you go into the river of change, and he's you have to unbecome everything you were before. Couldn't agree more. And I 100% have put his advice into action. However, the one caveat I would say with that is, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't like to wade into the river of all of the emotional things. And in fact, side note, I am number 7 of 7 kids. Okay, so emotions were not a whole lot of something that got pandered to in my world, right? Growing up, emotions were really just nonsense and trivial because we were just all trying to survive life, right? Especially being number 7, are you kidding me? And that really comes into play with what the story I'm going to share with you today. Because being 7 of 7, and I am a twin, and on top of that, I was a surprise. We were a surprise. My twin and I were a surprise. And there had been a 6-year lull between the last child and then us. So we were a surprise, maybe not the greatest surprise. They were already struggling as it was financially and probably just bandwidth-wise energy. And then here we come along. Okay, so now let me say that I normally, back in my, 20s and 30s, I would never talk about feelings or go back and like read all the self-help books because there are 6 girls in my family. So I have 5 sisters and a brother. And my sisters were always a lot more in tune with going back into looking into self-help books and why do I feel this way and exploring all this stuff. I never was that person. I'd always be like, okay, there's nothing I can do about it. Our parents were our parents. There's nothing they can do. They were strained. There was nothing, almost like, who cares? I mean, I can't change it, right? So there was nothing like horrible happened or anything like that. So I'm not minimizing anybody's parental, influence over your life. But in my particular situation, there was nothing horrible that took place. It was just, as I, now come to find out, it's more like a emotional kind of non-attunement, like at all. It was just more like managing our lives instead of like really attuning and connecting. And my sister somehow kind of had an inkling that there had to be more to the story and how it was affecting them more so than I did. So they were kind of ahead of the curve on all of this, in their 20s and 30s, really kind of exploring this. I didn't. But the reason that this matters, and once midlife hit and all of these kind of undealt with emotions find a way of triggering you and bringing all these things to the surface, and then once I found coaching and then mindset, I started to understand that my past did inform who my present version of me is. Okay, so for all you midlifers who are feeling, and anybody for that matter, if you're looking at your life going, why can I only get so far in my career? Why can I only have so much enjoyment in my relationships? Why am I always like feeling like I'm an option in like friend groups instead of the option or the go-to person or whatever it is, whatever the little hitch in your throat kind of feeling is when it comes to relationships and your career and any kind of interpersonal way that you react. There is a story connected to that. But again, I was always pushing it down. I was not paying attention to what that story was. So therefore, it didn't matter what the story was. I'm just saying that it came a time in midlife where I had to look at it. Like I felt compelled. Not like I had to, like somebody's telling you need to look at this, but more like I felt compelled. And then I began to follow what I always call the cosmic breadcrumbs of life, in which led me to go back. So in order to go forward, you really do need to go back and find out what informed the version of you that you are today. What was it in your childhood that informed that version? And why does that matter? Because I'm going to tell you why it matters as we go on this little story. I'm going to tell you why it matters because it changes the outcomes of everything in your life. And it informs the way you parent. It informs the spouse you choose or your partner. It informs how you feel about love in general. It informs how you show up in your career. It informs how you show up in group dynamics. What role do you play? It informs your relationships with your siblings or with other family members. It informs all of it. And little did you know, it all stemmed from way back when. And once you get your finger on the pulse of things, you will start to see like, holy crap. This has shown up in every one of the most pivotal, profound moments in my life that were maybe disappointing. It shows up more in your disappointments than it does in your wins. Okay, and so there is, as they always say, there is always purpose in pain, but that could not be more true when it comes to this, because there is some information that is needing to be found out every time you feel triggered by somebody, or you feel slighted by somebody, or somebody doesn't treat you with the appropriate amount of respect and you have no idea why. Or they just kind of make you persona non grata. They might just ignore you, or you get ghosted, or you don't get invited to a group thing or a friend thing, or people don't check in with you, or like you had something going and no one checks in with you. Like that kind of thing. There's a reason what led up to that energetically. And believe it or not, a lot of it is coming from you. I would have never believed it because it's easier to blame all the people around you. But at the same time, when those same patterns keep showing up, the only consistent in all of those arenas is you. You are the consistent factor. So now we've got to look at that, because the faster you look at it and understand what it is and how to uproot it, the faster you can change the outcomes. Okay, so again, this is kind of talking high level. You're probably not knowing where I'm going to land the plane here, but let me kind of make it a little more specific and bring this down to the ground here. So one of the main topics we can call this and place this lesson under is people pleasing, right? So people pleasing is overused. Oh, you're thinking people pleasing, nicey nice. No. It can be that. That is definitely true. But people pleasing takes a lot of different shapes and forms. For instance, remember I have a twin, okay? And remember what I just told you about us. We were an accident. We were not planned. We already had 5 siblings up to that point, and a mom who didn't work, and a dad who did like car mechanic stuff. Okay, so needless to say, I'm sure there was a lot of stress and strain in that dynamic, both financially and just energy-wise and just relationship-wise, because we've got a mother who is just like surviving life and just trying to get by, and she's an overfunctioner and manages everything but has zero ability to attune, no ability at all to emotionally attune, all right? And then a dad who is just out. Like he's good, nice enough, but just like brings home the bacon and then he's out. He's not doing anything else. The mom is overfunctioning, doing all the work, getting all the kids taken care of, getting everybody's needs met. There is, in terms of check the box, get to school, get your hair brushed, all that kind of stuff. Understandably, it's an assembly line, right? Okay, so now you've got 2 little more kids joining the bunch, my sister and I, and people-pleasing showed up in both of us, however, in different ways. But we were both chronic people pleasers, because when you're in a situation like that, you don't have crumbs to eat. You barely even get a crumb to survive in, let alone really get basking in the love and the glow of the love of your family. No, that is not happening. That is not what it is. All right, because this is just like a military situation. Like we're just churning and burning over here trying to survive life. So best intentions, but that's what it is. So one of the twins, like for instance, my sister, my twin, is a people pleaser, but hers shows up in functioning too, over functioning. like doing, just to, get the approval, just to be able to fit in and get the approval and maybe a little bit of attention from, the people in the family. Because at that time, when you're young, the only kind of income you have is your, what you bring to the table. So that is kind of like your cachet with your parents, and every kid wants to please their parents. So there would be the good little girl who would, do all of the things and function, clean and, oh, I'll get you this and I'll get you that, and serve and be really good at that. And she is, and she still is to this day. Very good at that. But then you've got the other twin, me, who does not show up as the over-serving and over-giving, but I am over-giving in the emotional way. I do the emotional labor. I hold everyone's emotions. I hold the ability to just survive myself, because when you're born, I don't know if any of you know anything about astrology. I know just like a pinprick worth of it, enough to be dangerous and to find it interesting, because I always find human behavior interesting and I love to kind of catalyze it, so sometimes it helps me not get my feelings hurt by just simply coming from the place of, let me at least understand it. That way I don't take anything personally, which has been part of my toxic problem, by the way. Hey, that'll show up in this story. It will definitely have a starring role in this story, is me understanding people's, way of reacting to my people pleasing, by simply understanding it, so that way I don't have to feel the hurt or the neglect of being rejected on some level of rejection. Right? So I was this kid who was always there serving people and holding space and talking people through their problems, and always there to go, it's all right. Okay, no, we've got this, to be the good kid, to keep everything down, because I'm not going to throw a fit. I'm the good girl. I'll be as small as you need me to do, because I won't cause waves. I don't need anything. No. Like, I remember my mom would take us over to my great aunt's house and line all of us kids on the couch, and she'd be like, oh, do you want something to drink? No, they don't need anything. They're fine. So I followed that lead. That's a perfect example of how I showed up in all of my life. No, I don't need anything. I don't need any help. Let me just be as convenient and easygoing as possible, so that way I don't make you uncomfortable, or you will like me because I'm easy to integrate. I'm so easy. I don't require much of anything to be, with. It was my understanding that in order to get any kind of crumb of attention, I needed to be easy and nearly invisible. So if I have my feelings hurt, I have to console myself. I have to soothe myself, because it's inconvenient to have somebody who isn't even in touch with their own emotions somehow be able to come in and attune with me if I'm crying. No one's coming to get me if I cry. I'm there soothing myself. No one's showing up. I have to learn at a baby age how to soothe myself, because we got a household of people. And I know for a fact that happened probably more times than I want to believe, just at a baby level. Because you know how they say that touch and all of that eye contact and stuff is so important from 0 to like 3 years old, really having that attunement and specific attention, so that the baby can feel safe and comforted and that their needs are being met. Because if they don't, then they'll adapt other kinds of behaviors to make up for the fact that they aren't getting their emotional needs met, right? So my sister became the people pleaser, and so do my other sisters too, by the way, but over-functioning, not all of them. But then I came by just being small and guarded and just walled off. Like, I don't need anything. Just I'm a bubble. I'm in a bubble. I don't need anything. Don't try to make me feel bad for existing, because I'm being made to feel bad just because I simply existed, but I didn't ask for this existence. You know what I mean? So it was, what I didn't realize is that's what was going on. I was making myself so small because my needs are insignificant. And as time goes on, that becomes the norm. And that shows up in literally every single place in life. And that is my version of people pleasing. That is her version. So life took on its own flavor for both of us because we both had to survive in the way that our people pleasing would best get us the best outcomes we could possibly get with no help. Do you know what I'm saying? So like we were solo. We were not the people who are going to go out and, oh, could I get some help from you? No, I don't need any help. No, I don't need any money. I can do this. I can do this. So we became very self-sufficient and very independent. I was very independent and very self-sufficient very early on in my life. So that's how the next iteration of that showed up is, oh, I don't need anything. I'll figure it out. Oh, I'm the go-to girl. And then you almost take some kind of pride in the fact that you can figure it all out, right? Because you were made to figure it out, all right? And while that is great, and it's a very useful skill in this world, it is also problematic if you pick it apart, didn't know it at the time, but you can put this into the late 40s awakening category, where little by little I started to see like, I make myself so small and I make myself so optional. Like, you don't have to be nice to me all the time if you're in a bad mood. I understand because, again, I was learning to understand people's behavior so that I wouldn't feel the sting of it. Does that make sense? So that was my way of coping. If I at least understood like, oh, you're having a bad day, or you have a lot going on and I'm able to fill this need for myself. So I'll just go ahead and do that. You see? So I never put myself in a position where I made anyone fill my needs. So therefore, they never tried. I was very optional. And how does yours show up? How would yours show up? If you're over-functioning, you're doing too much for people. And at some point, you're going to burn out because you are not like doing this in the fullness of taking care of yourself. You're doing this to survive so people will like you instead of seeing you for just merely the essence of who you are. And while that sounds deep, it's really not that deep. But it's so nuanced and such a slight shift, but it like opened up an entire can of worms. And it just seems like, even though I thought that I had the lesson learned, I didn't. Because in coaching, you learn to catch your thoughts, right? And I did a couple episodes ago about surrender and how surrender, like, oh, I'll just surrender outcomes. This is like a similar situation where surrender means, in coaching, you learn like, oh, I'm going to have, faith that it will all work out, or that's part of your faith walk. Oh, it'll all work out. It will. And you know what? A lot of times it probably, it can, and it does, but not all the time. But what you don't understand is that until your inner voice, little kid version of you, knows that you are safe to have needs and to cry if you're sad and to ask for something if you really want it on your Christmas list, just because you purely desired. It's okay to ask, even if the likelihood of you getting that thing is pretty slim. We need to create and cultivate situations for ourselves and for our kids and for people around us to be able to make it safe enough for them to ask, or to promote that in ourselves or in our kids to ask for things. Because even if we can go, well, I don't need it anyway, because if it's not meant to be, if I didn't get it, it's not meant to be. It's not supposed to be. Well, again, on some level that may be true, but that's not completely accurate. Because what is accurate is, are you still denying something, a very real need of yours, because you're trying to not inconvenience somebody else? You're trying to stay safe so they won't disappoint you, or so that you won't be disappointed by life again, and your feelings get hurt again, and you go inside again, and then that is the energy you emote to the people around you. And do you know how you can test this? Let me give you a perfect example. If you go into a large group of people, you join a women's group, or you join like a volunteer group, or whatever, a church group, whatever it is, you will be able, if you now know this and you are consciously looking for this, you will know the people who were either completely attuned to as a child or had some caretaker somewhere in their world that attuned to their needs, or they didn't have that and they learned this little secret that I'm telling you now. They have done the inside work to get themselves up to kind of, I hate to say reparent because that sounds so trite and cheesy, but that's essentially what it is. Telling that inside version of you, like, it's okay to want. You, all your life you said it wasn't okay, but I'm here to tell you we're changing that now. It is okay to want. And you will see the versions of people that had that attunement, and then if you are not one of them, you will see how you are received in that group. And you will see how you feel walking into that group. Do you feel small and intimidated, or do you feel excited and confident? Which one do you feel? Because that is oftentimes your first clue as to whether or not I have done the work to believe that even when I get into a larger group, I think I'll be okay. Because you are used to, your nervous system is used to being turned up and attuned to, and that your needs actually matter, instead of you at 1 year old having to figure out how to meet your own needs when you are sad, your own needs when you need something, or are cold, physically cold, or whatever it is, or you just need a hug sometimes. You know what I mean? And so you've done that for yourself, but that was in the energy of survival because you had nowhere else to turn. But a healed person may still not be getting their needs attuned to in their relationships and in life in general, but their tide will turn because they have recognized that that was going on. First of all, the first key is to recognize it, because you can't change a pattern until you are aware of it. And then you can go back in and basically, whether it's in meditation or whether you work with a therapist or whatever, to go through some of those incidents that you can, when you give yourself space, you'll begin to see all the places where that pattern showed up. Oh my God, it's crazy. Like where you shrink to be able to like fit in, or to be liked, or to be accepted, or to be heard, instead of, if you were fully in your worth, or you had done the healing, or you had been attuned to, you would have confidence to believe that you have something great to offer here, and that you will do that, and not with bravado, but with quiet confidence. And you would say, yeah, I believe this. And you won't overtalk, because when you overtalk, that is part of your trauma, because you are trying to make your existence okay again, right? So like you're trying to be like, oh, I'm sorry, but we could do this and we could do that. No. But that's how it will show up, though. That's one of the ways it'll show up. But I think the most interesting key is when you go into a bigger group and you're like, oh, what is my position in this group? Oh, God, what if they don't like me? If you instantly think that that's a problem, then you have some inner work to do. And that's why people pleasing is a bigger topic than just a behavioral change. It's not just a behavioral change. It is part of it, but it's not only just behavior. It is identity based. It is deep rooted in there. So like, let's put it this way. In another podcast episode, and I liked this example I just heard recently on a different podcast, and I was like, that's a brilliant example. I talked about the concept of upper limiting, and like your inside happiness quotient, success quotient, all of that is set at a certain amount. So let's think of it as your heat in your home. You want it to be 72, because now it's starting to get really cold here in the Midwest. But your heat is only set to go up to about 67, and then it cuts off. And it won't go any higher than 67. Think of that as your internal monitor for how big you will allow yourself to be in a situation before all the energy gets cut off and then your momentum just gets taken out. Like your legs get taken out from underneath you. Like say you were on a success track for something and you were getting really good about getting lots of options coming your way, and then suddenly it stops and you can't keep it. Either you sabotage yourself without realizing it, or you will, there will be something, or somebody sabotages you, because energetically, their energy is reading yours and saying, yeah, she won't fight me back. That happened to me. That actually happened to me. I've got so many great examples, and some of them I don't even want to freaking share because, you may even know some of the people involved in this for me. But yeah, I mean, like people, it's almost like there's a sucker born every minute, as they say. You're maybe one of those suckers, because you will do, if you have this people pleasing problem, your energy says, yeah, go ahead and target me because I won't fight back, because I'm too busy worried about whether you like me or not, and I need to fit in. And so my energy and my, intensity will stop and cut off at 67, even though in order to survive and succeed in this place, it needs to be a 72, but it won't. So you will constantly be the scapegoat. Whether you did anything to deserve it or not, you didn't. And that's like the sad part about all of this, is you're generally one of the nicer, nicey people in the room, and you truly are nice, and that is great. That is great that you have a kind heart and you are nice, and I relate to that. I do. I want everybody to win in whatever, but maybe it's because I never was able to win myself. Because maybe, and I'm not saying I never have, but there are situations where I can see this pattern of nicey nice girl, or you'll join a big group, and then you, even though you seem to be having a lot of momentum in your own personal lane, whether it's, whether you're doing something health and fitness wise, or whether you're doing something, in business and you're getting into a larger group, suddenly if your self-worth isn't up to the level of maybe 72, some of the intense girls in the thing, you're going to get absolutely ignored. You will be invisible in that group. You will get eaten alive, talked over, not on purpose because they're mean, but because they're there to present. They are there for business. They are there to network, and their self-worth is very high. And so you will be easily pushed out of the way because you are not them. They have had things attuned to them, so they're good to go. They've done some work and they are good to go. But even though you're coming in your mind going, well, I feel very confident. Look at all these amazing things I did. Yeah, you might have. But your energy still says, oh my God, I feel so like I'm the least in this whole room. And like, my little freaking 1-year-old self says, I better figure out a way to make myself feel happy and not feel embarrassed and feel, worthy. And because, so you're busy trying to meet your own needs instead of going into the group dynamic to come and serve your ideas and collaborate. You're too busy doing a PR campaign for your own personhood to explain why you're even there, or to legitimize why you're there, because we work our way into people liking us. Then you get really nice and you offer more and more help and more nice words and advice to everybody, and nothing. You get nothing returned. There is no reciprocity. As I said at the beginning, there is possibility for reciprocity. But when you are coming in trying to just not be an embarrassment to yourself, or to, like, I'm just going to push myself and go out here, but oh God, I hope, I have something good to say, even though I feel really confident, but inside you've only ever been happy as a 68, but you need to be a 72, but you haven't done anything to expand that inner game to 72 again. you're still at like 67, 68. And you'll get little moments of momentum where you might get up to a 68 and a half, but then something's going to happen and it's going to get sabotaged and you're going right back down to what they call upper limiting. In that book, The Great Leap, it's a documented scientific fact that that happens. That's not just spouting off woo-woo energetic stuff. No, ma'am. That is documented in a study in the book, The Big Leap, and it's called Upper Limiting. And more examples of that continue to show up. Versions of that in my life, even though I feel like I have licked them. Ha ha ha, so funny. Nope. Another nuance of it continues to show up. So it's just like the craziest thing, how it's like the quiet saboteur of your life without you even realizing it. But it's really fundamental that once you get into a program, whether it's, again, whether you're doing therapy or whether it's meditation, the real key and question to get down to the bottom of is who is driving the bus for you? Who is it? Is it your 2-year-old self who just wants your mom to find you when you're crying as you hide in the closet because you're sad because you were being judged and made fun of by your sister and it made you cry and no one came to your rescue? Is it that girl who formulated her self-worth? I guess no one's coming. I guess I have to fight my own battles. Maybe I can just avoid all battles by being small and invisible. Maybe I can make myself invisible. And that's in the 2-year-old brain, that feels like, okay, well, anything to avoid being hurt like this. So you go through life playing defense and avoiding being hurt instead of expanding to take risks. And even though in your brain, behavioral-wise, as you get older, you might go out and stretch yourself and try to take risks, your thermostat is still at a 67, baby. It's not going past that 67. You can get up there and get close and kind of maintain that 67, but to go above it, unless you know that that is happening, you're still going to stay at a 67. So again, you can have some success, but it won't be the level that you're going to want. And this isn't just about work or careers, because a lot of people in my age group are winding out their careers. So trust me, it's not just about careers. It is in relationships as well. Suddenly you're finding your marriage not quite as easy or enjoyable as it once used to be, because we have to overfunction many times and become a machine to get through the busy days of marriage once you start to have kids, and then the kids become the priority and their schedules become the priority, and fostering them and mentoring them. And remember, we mentor them. Oh, fun fact. In the way, a lot of us mentor our kids in the way that we wish that we had been mentored or raised, right? We correct things from our childhood. And if some of us had attuned childhoods, then you just repeat that, and that's good. But some had some correction that needed to be done. So you correct that for your kids. But the good news is that they can break this people-pleasing cycle because you have taught them, how to react differently and how to stand in their worth. But you aren't going to do that if you don't know that you're a people pleaser. You might attune to them and be there for their emotional needs, especially if you're somebody like me who that was like a main thing missing, a core component. So of course I was always there, very dialed in to their emotional needs, and listening, holding space for them and listening to everything it is that they needed so that they could feel held and safe. Because the nervous system is the one regulating all of this, your nervous system. So I would like to believe that my main goal, without even knowing that that's what I was doing, I was keeping them safe and regulated in their nervous system. But this whole people-pleasing thing, now that I know about it, it's like, yikes! Oh, God! I need to go back and like, hey, can we have a phase 2 of that parenting, even though you guys are all in basically, young adults? Can we talk about that? Because please don't, even though I was so nice and, oh, my mom's so nice and she's so nice to everybody. Yeah, I am. I am. But there's a thing that you can be too nice, okay? Because I was giving up things that made me comfortable to make the other people comfortable all the time. And please do not copy what I did, okay? Because then you're going to be healing at 50 years old like I am. So please, we need to go back and discuss people pleasing, because it's good to be kind and nice. We're all taught that, especially in like Bible school, study school. Oh, you got to be nice and you got to surrender. Yep. Got to do all that for sure. Check the box. Absolutely. Good. All good. However, what they don't tell you is that doing that in lieu of your own safety and your own emotional needs and any of that, probably not good. So, because you're compensating, right? So, life is always a journey and things unfold at exactly the time that they should. And so this year is like a lot of those like fine, sharp edges came on to all of these ahas that I already knew about it. Like I said, I had the behavioral changes. Ooh, but it was the deep, deep river of emotional like fallout from those things that I have been dealing with this year, and having to look at how all of my relationships look, my friendships, everything, and how some have fallen away weirdly as I have changed. Some of my friendships energetically just fall away, not in a bad way in terms of like not on bad terms, but just sort of falling away, kind of weird, and you just have to understand that sometimes it can be you're in for a lot of change once you do change all this, because they're used to the old version of you who shows up and just goes, oh yeah, I'm easy, whatever you want. Yeah, wherever you want to go. Okay, yeah, you're just happy to be included, right? Like you're just happy. Oh, yeah. Oh, they called. Oh, yay. You're happy to be part of it, and they're not going to know why all of a sudden about face of your more, and it doesn't have to be edgy because that's not your personality, but it has to be like, well, you didn't make plans, so I just went ahead and made plans to do something different, or, whatever the dynamics would be. And then in your relationships too, like, like partnerships, marriages, things like that, people pleasing and that kind of toxic low worth behavior really can wreck the status of the marriage, because then your partner gets used to the old version of you who just said, okay, I'm easy, whatever you want to do, I'm not offended. Oh, I'm impossible to offend. I used to say that. Yeah, right. It said I was impossible. I would say that all the time. You can't offend me. I'm fine. I'm always fine. Those are my famous words. I'm always fine. Well, yeah, see where that got me. So I'm not always fine. As it turns out, narrator voice, she was not always fine. In fact, that is true. I was not always fine. So all of this came to a head, and a lot of it was learned this year. And so maybe my shedding is shedding that old, nicey nice girl, super nice girl, nicey nice, nice. Always nice, but I am always nice. But sometimes there are different decisions that I would have liked to have made that now I will honor those decisions. And that's going to be the only difference. And if you knew me before and all of a sudden I'm saying no to things that I used to say yes to, that might be a little bit like, ooh, okay, what's going on? But if you never met me, it'll seem like, oh, she's totally, yeah, that's fine. Because it won't be in a, I'm, women's liberation, it's not going to be anything like that. It's more just, being honest with what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and staying open for all fun adventures of life and all new opportunities and new friendships and new groups. But you can approach them with a whole different energy. Like you've got something to add to this group. Instead of walking in, skulking in, hiding in the shadows, trying not to make any waves, trying not to make anyone uncomfortable, so that they'll like you. You approach it with a whole different energy. So this year has been all about that. It has been the evolving and shedding of the nice girl, like the super toxic nice girl. I'm toxic to myself, not toxic to anybody else. Everyone else can like you because you're doing everything they want you to do, right? So you're doing it all. But now all of a sudden you're going, now wait a minute. I would like a little reciprocity in my partnerships and friendships and business, things like, yeah, I've had a lot of, you get tested once you start to make these changes too. That's my last whole thing. It's so funny how you will get tested. Oh my goodness gracious. I have been tested more this year than I have in years. So that must be that I'm doing something right. I'm going to take these tests and triggers as the fact that I'm getting my toes stepped on a lot so that I can start to see exactly pinpoint accuracy where I let myself down, where my energy betrays me, and so I can turn my thermostat up to the 70s. Hopefully, even at 71, I'm banging to get up to 72, my thermostat, my quotient of happiness, my quotient of success, so that I can feel proud to be in my skin and not have to feel skulking away, and that when I set a goal, I make good on that goal for myself, and I don't let myself down because, I gotta go help somebody else. For once, maybe I'll put myself at the top. And I say me rhetorically, but all of you have this version of you that you maybe haven't looked at because no one's pointed it out. So for anyone that this resonates with, that's why I'm getting back on the podcast, and all of these audio journals that I've had, I'm going to make so many of them into podcasts, because that's going to be my platform. I get really tired of social media. I get tired of it. I don't like being on Instagram. I don't hate it, but I just don't like it. It feels heavy to me. It feels like this isn't right, because I feel like I'm trying to look at me, look at me. But that's not how I feel when I see other people's posts, so I don't know why I feel like that. And it's probably still work I have to do, because I haven't come into the fullness of my confidence yet, even though, again, everyone who knows me would think that I was confident, and I was. On the outside, behaviorally, definitely very confident and competent, 100%. Really, really comfortable with that. But then when you put me in a group dynamic, it's that comparison trap. And, I hope they like me, looking for validation outside of you. That's where the trap comes. So start to look for those little nuances. And if you're getting tested and triggered by a lot of people, yay for you, because something is coming to the surface and it's about to change for the better. So that's a very good thing, actually. So I hope this resonates and finds the people that this works for and the people who need this. And I'm going to continue my best to try to turn all of these journals into podcasts and blogs so that you can kind of follow along on this journey if you find this, because this is for you and we're in it together, and there's hope on the other side of this. And thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful holiday season.